It is May 18th, 2019. We're here on the rooftop of 507 Flower Street in Chula Vista, California, 91910. There's a unit above the garage. We did not see any clean outs for the main sewer. There is on the other side of the house as we pan across the rooftop there at that other little satellite dish right there. That's actually where the kitchen vent is. It's actually attached to that. There is a clean out for there at the ground level. Old original cast iron may not be undone. The laundry is behind the next little section of the house. That does not have a clean out at ground level, but the piping that's been partially replaced with plastic in the laundry room has a detachable boot so that the cast iron laundry line, which ties into the kitchen, could be snaked from ground level. So for the main sewer, we're here. We've got another satellite dish attached to this vent. This is the original 4-inch cast iron vent. We've got a wire there that they actually drop just down into there. So we've got a 1-inch camera going through this line right now, and that looks a little T-junction right there, picking up the vent for the shower stall. We did not put a centering guide on here because we first wanted to see how the line looks before we try to put anything larger in there. It brings this skid essentially off the bottom of the pipe. So here we're transitioning into the actual sewer main itself from the vent. You see this turn fitting right here. Okay, so we're in the original cast iron right here. So we can see obviously it's relatively rough, which we'd expect with the age of this property and the cast iron. Now here we have a turn on the line. Now I believe we have to locate it, but I believe this line may just leave the house and go into essentially what is the driveway area here on the side of the house, and then it's either going to be running towards the street or to the back of the house where it picks up the unit above the garage and then maybe goes to a backyard easement. But we'll go ahead and locate that. First we're going to go ahead and maneuver our camera through here. Got a little bit of debris on the camera lens from making those turns, so what we're going to do is we're going to pause the video really quick and we're going to go ahead and flush some water down the drain to clean the lens off. Okay, so we flushed the toilet, got our lens kind of cleaned up there, as you can see, a little better imaging now. We're just going to back up the line here. We're going to make that turn again, but we really want to just see if we missed anything with the original debris that was kind of clogging up the lens there a little bit. So again, a lot of scale and deposits on the wall of the pipe. It's going to be typical with this age of cast iron for this home. But not huge mounds. Okay, so there's that. Camera's kind of has a hard time making that original turn. So overall, though, it actually looks like the buildup isn't in excess too bad. Okay, so we're coming up to a little just chunk of debris. Looks like that might be a wipe or some type of cloth towelette or debris that somebody might have flushed down the system. Same thing there. So obviously wipes should never be flushed down any of the sewer drain lines. They do not dissolve or break apart in water, so even the ones that say flushable, they're going to do this. They're going to snag in the line, they're going to stay in the line, and eventually lead to main sewer blockages. Yeah, a lot of wipes there. Okay, just got past that. So the line is still intact and completely functional. We're going to go ahead and pause the video for one moment. We're going to go ahead and locate this to see which direction and where we're at in our pathway. Okay, so we are in the driveway, so the line does immediately leave the house and go into, essentially when you're facing the house, would be the right side of the house where the driveway is, the dirt driveway. It's almost in the middle of the driveway, just slightly closer to the house. The pipe near the front of the house as it's headed towards the street is where we're at right now at this distance almost, and it's about just under 2.5 feet deep. So we're going to go ahead and continue to push down the line. So again, so far the condition of the pipe, other than just its age with a little bit of corrosion and scale and deposit buildup on the walls, is completely functional, and we don't see any need so far for any repair or replacement. Looks like some more wipes there. Same thing, more wipes in the line here. More wipes here. This one's kind of grabbing our camera lens. There we go. So we may have to switch out cameras with a couple 90s that we've made all in succession as we're leaving the house to go down the driveway. We're probably going to have to put a little bit stiffer push rod and camera to continue to get all the way out. We're going to go ahead and try to run some water down the system right now to see if we can continue with this particular camera. Otherwise, we'll swap it out. So we're right at about the 65-foot mark right now. We're going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so what we gone and done is we did keep the same camera in here, and we ran a bunch of water through the system to reduce the friction and help it push out, and we did get all the way out. So what you're looking at right here is the end of the horizontal lateral line for this house, and you can see right ahead of it is the larger white pipe with all that we're running across. We're coming up to the T-junction here for the city main, where all the other people in the neighborhood are using. That's why you see tons of water flow directly ahead of us. So we're going to go ahead and slowly back up to the line, show the 40 feet that we went through in reverse now. So again, here's the end of the line. That's the city just in front of us. We've got just a little bit of residual flowing in our line, but it'll stop in a second here. So here, this is clay pipe. So this is 4-inch clay pipe that we are now in. It transitioned quite a few feet back. There's some of those wipes. A little bit of debris right there, but it's not roots or anything else, it appears. A little bit of debris there. Again, we're not seeing any heavy root intrusion or anything else there. Okay, so we've now transitioned out of the clay, and looks like we're back into possibly the cast iron here. So you can see we have an area that's holding water quite extensively. Our 1-inch camera is completely underwater. You can see all the little debris floating around there. So this could be a sag or a belly, or it could be a partially corroded line where it's attaching and dumping into the cast iron. I'm sorry, where the cast iron is connecting into the clay. So as we push forward, you can see that hub right there. So there's a misalignment possibly just on the connection point right here. So what we're going to do is kind of jump over that. So you can see there's our clay pipe. And as we back up just barely, we drop into this little sag or belly that's catching and holding the water. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video and mark and locate this. Okay, so this little hub connection from the cast iron to the clay that's got a little bit of an offset misalignment here, which is causing this little gap that then holds water like a little dam, is just inside the street. So it is marked with some green paint. Again, a foot into the street as it leaves the property, and it's approximately 4.5 feet deep. So it's not really an area, obviously, that can be easily repaired or redone, but we're going to back up here and see how far we have to go back till we can get out of this little sag or belly that's holding this water. So you can see right here we're finally coming out of that. So, and actually we're still in clay pipe. It was actually kind of hard to see. It looked like it was all dark and brown and black like the cast iron, but that was just all the debris that was kind of coating the pipe, made it look like we were in cast iron and not clay. So it's actually just one of the clay hubs. So we're right at about 81 feet. I'm going to push forward here to the little piece. And so it's about a 2-foot section, or barely that, about 1.5 feet. So again, it is relatively minor, but we just want to point it out, and that's why you really don't want to be flushing wipes and other things, because now they've got to somehow go over that lip and that edge of the two pipes where they come together, and that will always cause them to snag there and not really want to roll by that particular area. But it's not a huge concern as far as what we would be considering as far as needing repair or anything. We see a lot of small sags or bellies in the lines, sometimes due to a misalignment like this from one pipe to the next. This one isn't that bad, and again, it is not holding tons of debris, and our camera, just by pushing, did jump over that relatively easy, so it's not too bad. But again, we did mark it in the street. We're still in the clay pipe here. Okay, and there we go. We got another one of those little hub pieces where it's not a perfect transition from one piece to the next. We'll see if this is from clay to clay or if it's from clay to the cast. So a small little area where, again, we're holding water and debris there. So that one's relatively small as well, and that is where the cast iron is transitioning. So this little pocket right here is where the cast iron is ending. And you can see that is a clay, small piece of pipe, and they use a small piece to go. And then we're at a hub right there. And so same thing, it's very, very minor. It's a relatively clean transition still. So even though it's holding a little bit of water, we don't suspect that it's going to require repair or any type of replacement at this time. So here's where our cast iron ends. So we were pretty close at that 65-foot mark where we stopped pushing originally before we ran water. So we are going to go ahead and mark this so that everybody knows where the cast iron ends. So we're going to pause the video. Okay, so we've gone ahead and located this. This is right at the end of the driveway, literally, right where the gate is leading to then the city sidewalk. So the cast iron runs across the entire driveway, and then right at the city sidewalk, we essentially turn into clay. The pipe is still right around 4.5 feet deep here. We did real quick, even though it's not going to last, we marked with the little green dot denoting this transition. So that's where the cast iron ends. So we'll now pull back because we didn't see this few feet here as we come backwards. Okay, so you can see here we're back to about the 65-foot mark. Again, there's a bunch of those wipes and stuff in there. Take a little photo of this. So again, you know, somebody that was living here, or still maybe if there's somebody residing in any of the units, is flushing these down. They just can't go down. I mean, it could have been a construction or a cleaning crew, or it could be somebody that was residing here, but those are just a big no-no. Okay, so we've seen all this up to this point already when we first went through the line. So the line overall is in good condition. It's got its rough edges, which is going to be expected with cast iron, but there's no roots. Those two small little sag bellies that are holding water are in the clay pipe, and they're not terrible. They're not in a real diggable area anyway, so it's not something that we would recommend or would say it needs to, again, be repaired. So we're now going to pause the video and pull this camera back, and we're going to attempt to see if we can maybe get down part of the kitchen line, which you don't think is going to happen because it's all original cast iron. It does look heavily corroded from the crawl space entry point. And then we're going to look at the back unit above the garage, see if we can get into that main. Okay, so we're right here. This is actually the kitchen line, just kind of poking into the crawl space. So again, there's a bunch of pustules and corrosion on the outside walls of the 2-inch cast iron pipe for the kitchen, because again, just with sheer age and cast iron on the kitchen line, this is what's going to happen. So it's heavily corroded. We can just see, actually, as we looked even with our flashlight, we did get this clean out off, obviously at ground level, that it's, you know, really constricted with buildup. I mean, this is the smallest camera, and we're just barely making it through here, but it is open. Water was draining through. We're just going to keep pushing our camera through here. It's going to keep kind of clogging up, but we just want to get the camera through if we can. There we go. There's a little bit of a view. So you can see, I mean, again, this is a micro camera. This is called the Nano Reel from Ridgid. So the first camera we used was 1 inch. This is less than 3/4 of an inch. This is a very small camera, and so it's barely clearing this space here, but it is open, so liquid and everything will travel through. But again, it's going to clog relatively easy because of how constricted it is with all the buildup. So it looks like we got into the main there. So the line is open. Again, it just got real heavy buildup, which would be expected. So even though it's not actively leaking right now, all that corrosion on the outside of the pipe are little pustules where the pipe was starting to fail and kind of sealed itself off. So that line, there's our transition. So that's the dumping into the main right there. Now we're back into the kitchen line right here. So you can see, again, there's just a lot of buildup, and that's going to be normal for this age of pipe and when a kitchen gets, unfortunately, somewhat abused with all the debris that's going to go down it. So this line's going to require replacement probably relatively near in the future. We can't say for sure, but with all the outside corrosion we see on it, I would speculate that within the next 5 years, something's probably going to have to be replaced on here, especially if it starts clogging a lot. If it's going to have to be hydrojetted or snaked, that heavy agitation is really going to want to cause the pipe to start leaking at those joints that already, again, have corrosion from the outside walls that moisture had started to seep through. So we're going to go ahead and pull this back and try to go ahead and inspect the unit above the garage. Okay, so we got water running in the kitchen. We're actually just going to show this as we pull back. Probably going to lose our view, but again, water is moving down and out through the system, so it is completely functional. Just a very small opening, that's all, but it is working, and it is. Okay, we'll get our camera here. You can see there's where it's dumping in from the vertical. So here's where we're at. We're here outside the home, outside the window. Okay, so we're now going to pause and go to the unit above the garage. Okay, so we moved over to the rooftop of the unit that's above the garage. So there's Flower Street, we're looking forward. Here's the cross street and the neighbors behind. So we have original 3-inch cast iron vent here. We have full bathroom with a shower stall, and then the kitchen's on the other side. So we're going to go down this long vertical pipe. Here's a little turn right here. And looks like they've replaced this with plastic right here. Had a little bit of debris in our camera lens. We're going to pause for a second to get that cobwebs off. Okay, so here's where we left off. Here's the cast iron. Vent's kind of flaking, typical. Here's the ABS pipe that's all been replaced. Or the sewer pipe, I should say, been replaced with plastic ABS. We've got all these T-junctions that are picking up all the other fixtures there. And then we go back into cast iron here. And this is right now at the transition. We're at the ground level. So they replaced it in the ceiling there, and across, and then coming down. And then obviously when it's under the slab, under the garage, we're back to original cast iron here. So this line is going to run across, and it's going to tee into the main from the home that we've already inspected. So you can again see some scale and deposits built up on the bottom of the pipe there, little hump up and over. There's furnishings in this unit, so it does look like it's occupied, so it looks like it's being used, and we're not seeing feces and paper catching. But again, you can see there's some heavy mounds of buildup and debris right there in the system. A little bit heavier and a lot of undulations going up and down and over all that stuff compared to what we saw in the front house. But the line is completely intact. And again, because it's being used and we're not seeing a bunch of stuff backed up into there, things are moving down and out of the line. So a little bit of standing water right here. And again, that will be sometimes typical you'll have when you've got these big undulations or deposits built up in the line. That'll create a little damming effect. So I can see the top of the little water right there, the little line. This one's a little bit longer. Here we go, we're somewhat coming out of that. Okay, here's our transition, our T-junction, where we're teeing into the main part of the house that we already went through. So we're now into the part of the line where it's already been inspected, where we junctioned into. Here's the actual drop-in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and pause the video for a second. We're going to run some water to clean off our lens and come backwards on this line to show it again one more time. Okay, so we flushed the toilet and ran all the faucets just for a little bit. This upstairs unit here might just be staged. It may not be occupied, or if it is an Airbnb or rental, they might just have it furnished. I'm not sure if somebody is actually living in there. So we're going to have a little bit of residual water in the pipe here, but we're going to come back on the system here. Here's that last turn. Now we've got our long straight run coming back into the unit. So again, we got this pocket here that's holding a little bit of water. Come back on here and we'll maybe push forward again. We just want to see how that runs out, how long of a distance this is. Okay, so here's our cast iron. So right at about this 45-foot mark, we start to get a little bit of standing water in the system here. So we're already at a 10-foot run here. It's just starting to come out of that pretty much here. So we got about almost a 14-15 foot run where there's just a little bit of standing water, and it's right as we're coming up to this turn branch here, so maybe even that full 15 feet. So not sure if the angle can ever be corrected to get rid of that, but again, this is just an area and pocket that's always kind of holding a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and locate this so we can just see where it's at. we may recommend that maybe if they have any stoppages, once it gets occupied, if it's not, they may want to put some clean outs in. Now, we haven't got into the garage. Maybe there's a clean out in the garage. If there is, then that'd be good. If not, we're going to mark this pipe on the ground and would probably recommend putting in some clean outs if this becomes a rental or an Airbnb of some type, so that they've got a way to clean out the line through that sag and belly. Okay, so this is on the right side of the driveway as you're walking up the driveway towards this garage. The pipe is very shallow. It's only about 1 foot 4 inches deep right here at this spot. So as we back up that 15 feet, that's headed up the driveway, probably going to be starting to get under the concrete slab possibly, so we'll pull back and check that. But again, the garage, we did get into it, and there is already a clean out. So that all that ABS that was changed out in the garage is exposed, and they did put in a clean out. So now we don't need to worry about having a clean out added at this ground level because there is already one in there. We're going to push forward just a little bit here. So again, this is making that right turn with that fitting to head towards the house because that's where the sewer line comes into the driveway. We're along the fence edge, and it's got to get more towards the middle of the driveway. And then here's where it's making now that essentially a left turn to then dump into the house line right here. And now we're again headed down through the house line here. So we're going to go ahead and just pause again just to check the depth reading on this. Okay, so when we first started at that 60-foot mark, it was about 16 inches deep, and right here we're just about 18 inches deep, so it's not a big depth change, so there's no real way to get deeper to get rid of that sag or belly. You'd actually have to work backwards all the way towards the beginning of the system, essentially, all the way across the entire garage, possibly. So here's that 60-foot mark. So the water's not too bad, again, standing right there. It's going to get a little bit deeper right here. So now you can see as we back up, holding that little bit more water. So again, standing water in a cast iron is bad, just going to lead to faster corrosion and eventual rotting away of the pipe, since there's always water sitting in it, it's not draining out. So again, this very long run now at about that 45-foot mark, we know we're coming out of that sag or belly here. So there we go. It's kind of pretty much clear right there. So now we're going to go ahead and locate this and see where it's at in the concrete in the garage. Okay, so this is just literally under where the door closes in the garage. So it's under the concrete, only about 1.5 feet away from the dirt. So literally right where the door lands up being closed. This is where we're at right here with our camera, where the sag and belly kind of essentially start. So the pipe is only 1 feet 3 inches deep here. So for the 15 feet ahead of us, we should have dropped about 3 inches for that much distance, but we've only fallen 1 inch. So that's why we have this sag belly to the line. Again, the pipe was just not installed properly, literally from the original installation. There's just not enough fall. So the only way to correct that, unfortunately, would be to go all the way back from our mark in the driveway at the 60-foot mark, right where it makes that turn to head towards the house line. You'd have to go all the way back to the very beginning of this line in the garage where it comes down exposed, so that it was actually made shallower at that turn to correct, to get a longer pitch and fall. So I'm not saying that needs to be done in any way, shape, or form right now, but I'm just warning that you do obviously have this 15-foot long belly or sag, and so it could lead to stoppages and it could lead to faster corrosion of the pipe over the future. Nothing needs to be done right now. But we did those markings, and so essentially that is it. Everything else is clear on the property. Everything is functional. Doesn't need any immediate repair or replacement at this time. So that concludes this recording.